This woman buried more than a dozen people on her farm and collected a fortune in insurance money. When the fire finally exposed her, all they found was a headless body, and Belle Gunness was gone. Tonight we go to Porte, Indiana. I'm very nocturne, and every night I dig up the cases the world tried to bury. Tonight's case is one of them. So lock the door, turn the lights down low, and stay in the dark with me. On a spring night in 1908, a farmhouse in Indiana burned to the ground. Inside, investigators found the bodies of 3 children and a headless woman. At first, it looked like a terrible tragedy. They thought the nightmare was over. It had only just begun. When the police started digging in the yard, they found bodies everywhere, buried in the hog pen, under the garden, and near the lake. On the first day, they found 5. The next day, 6 more. Soon they simply stopped counting. Some were past a dozen. The woman who lived there had a name that would become legend: Belle Gunness. She was not born Belle. She was born Brynhild Paulsdatter in a small Norwegian village in 1859. She was the youngest of 8 children, and her family was poor. From the age of 14, she worked on other people's farms, milking cattle and saving every coin for a dream that lay across the ocean. In 1881, she boarded a ship for America. At the immigration hall, she left her old name behind and became Belle. She settled in Chicago, where her sister already lived. For a while, she was just another immigrant girl, working as a servant and in a butcher's shop, learning how to take apart a carcass. In 1884, Belle married a man named Mads Sorensen. Together, they opened a candy store. Then the strange fires began. The store burned down, and later their home burned too. Every time, Belle explained it away, and every time there was an insurance policy, and Belle collected. Children in the household began to die. 2 infants died of what doctors called acute intestinal illness. Both of them had been insured. The symptoms, some would later say, looked a great deal like poisoning. Neighbors whispered that Belle never even seemed to be pregnant. Then it was Mads's turn. He held 2 life insurance policies. One was ending, and the other was beginning on the very same day. On that exact day, in 1900, Mads died. Belle said she had given him a powder for a headache. She collected on both policies at once. With the money, Belle bought a farm in Porte, Indiana. It was a large property with a barn, a hog pen, and plenty of quiet land. It was the perfect place to start again, and with its soft soil and high fences, it was also the perfect place to hide. In 1902, she married again. Her new husband was Belle Gunness, a butcher. Within a week, his baby daughter was dead while in Belle's care. Within months, Peter was dead too. Belle said it was a terrible accident. She claimed a heavy meat grinder had fallen from a high shelf and crushed his skull. The coroner did not believe her, and a jury was told it looked like murder. But nothing was ever proven. She collected another insurance payout and kept the name that would haunt history. Now alone on her farm, Belle came up with a new plan. She stopped waiting for love and started hunting. She began placing advertisements in the Norwegian newspapers of Chicago. She was looking, she said, for a husband. The ads were warm and inviting. A comely widow with a fine farm wished to meet a gentleman of means. There was only one condition. Any man who answered should come in person, and he should bring enough cash to pay off the mortgage. Triflers, she warned, need not apply. Lonely men across the Midwest answered her call. They sold their land, emptied their bank accounts, and traveled to Porte with their life savings sewn into their coats. They arrived at the farm of a charming widow who cooked them dinner, and then they simply vanished. One of them was Henry Gerholt, a farmhand from Wisconsin. He wrote home that he liked the farm and asked his family to send seed potatoes. Then the letters stopped. When his family asked, Belle said he had left with horse traders. She kept his trunk and his fur coat. Another was John Moe, from Minnesota. He withdrew a large sum of cash and came to Porte. He was never seen again. A workman on the farm later remembered seeing Moe's trunk inside the house, sitting beside more than a dozen others. The men kept coming, and the trunks kept piling up. To the neighbors, Belle was a hard-working widow raising her children alone. She bought fresh meat and dug in her garden at strange hours. No one imagined what was buried beneath her feet. Belle did not act alone on the farm. She had a hired hand named Ray Lampere, who was also her lover. Lampere grew jealous of the wealthy men who came to court her. And Belle, it seemed, was starting to see him as a loose end. In early 1908, a man named Andrew Helgelien came to the farm. He had withdrawn a small fortune from his bank to be with Belle. Like the others, he disappeared. But Andrew had a brother named Azel, and Azel would not let it go. Azel wrote letter after letter asking what had happened to his brother. Belle's answers did not satisfy him. He announced that he was coming to Porte himself to search. Belle knew that time was finally running out. She fired Ray Lampere and told everyone he was dangerous. She went to a lawyer and wrote a will as if she expected to die. She said she was afraid that Lampere would kill her and burn her house down. It would prove to be a very convenient prediction. On the night of April 28, 1908, the farmhouse burned. In the ashes lay 3 of Belle's children and the headless body of a woman. Ray Lampere was arrested and charged with setting the fire. Then Azel Helgelien arrived and told the police to dig. In the soft earth of the hog pen, they found his brother's remains in a sack, and beside him, they found more. Body after body, wrapped and buried, butchered in the same terrible way. The whole country was horrified. People came by train to stare at the farm, and vendors sold postcards and souvenirs beside the open graves. But one question refused to die. Was the headless woman in the ashes really Belle Gunness? Her rings were found on the burned hand, and her dentist identified her gold crown. But a doctor who knew her insisted the body was wrong. It was far too small and too short to be Belle, who was a large and powerful woman. And the corpse had delicate, manicured nails, something Belle never had. Ray Lampere gave the final twist. From prison, he confessed that Belle had planned everything: the ads, the murders, and the money. He said the body in the fire was not Belle at all, but a victim she had killed and left behind so that she could disappear into the night. For years afterward, people claimed to see her in Chicago and far beyond. Another woman, named Esther Carlson, was later arrested for poisoning a man, and some believed she was really Belle. In 2008, scientists tried to test the body's DNA, but the sample was too old to read. To this day, no one knows if Belle Gunness died in that fire, or if she simply became someone else and started again. That's where our story ends, for now. If it kept you up, you know what to do. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Sleep well, if you can.